Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's so exciting to be at Shift 2024. And I'm in such a great company today. As we were announced, not many of us know what an exit is. I also don't know. So I'm actually here to learn from my co-panelists here, Luka, Izet, and Tomislav. And just to get started, our co-panelists have done it all. They have founded their companies, they have invested in companies, they have had a lot of experience with exits. And it's a little bit difficult for me to introduce them, so maybe I will ask them to give us a little bit of an overview of what they do. So, Luka, you're a partner at two companies, one private equity firm, co-founder of two companies, invested in 10. What's the best way to introduce you in terms of your current state of career?
So I'm Luka. Hello, everyone. My name is Luka Abrus. Yes, maybe most known recently for the exit of Five, where I was co-founder and CEO, but now I'm reinventing my entrepreneur spirit and career. So investing and deeply personally invested in a couple of businesses that mean a lot to me right now that I spend a lot of time with. So.
Great. And Izet also founded two companies. One of them kept the US election safe and sound, and the other one was sold to Google. How do you usually introduce yourself to your peers?
Thanks, Una. So yeah, co-founded, in fact, Microblink and Photomat. Photomat is known for the exit with Google. Prior to that, we had another company that was a failure. And people don't like talk about failures, but yeah, we had that as well. Currently serving as a partner at Silicon Gardens, where I'm sort of trying to build a founders fund and give back to the community. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Great. And Tomislav, from bootstrapping SaaS products to creating one of the most successful software companies in the region.
Yeah, hi, hi everybody. I'm Tom. I started as an entrepreneur about 20 years ago, which is a long time. I started Infinitum, which is one of the bigger or biggest, maybe, product development agencies in Croatia and the region. And I didn't exit that business, but I exited my job. Basically, I was CEO there, and I'm not anymore. I run a SaaS company now. It's called Productive. It's going, I would say, very well. We're about a 100-person operation, building product for profitability and productivity. So basically, companies all across the world use our software to manage their daily business, mostly marketing agencies, software dev agencies, those types of companies. And yeah, that's my kind of short story.
I realized I haven't introduced myself either. My name is Una. I founded a small emerging tech services company that's based in Japan, and super excited to be here today. And for me, the biggest success being today actually is coming back to Shift after 10 years. I was here 10 years ago pitching a startup which was not mine. It was in the language tech services area, and now 10 years later, I'm actually still relevant for this region, and it's really nice to be here. So talking about success, I want to ask our panelists, maybe Tomislav, for you, how do you define success with everything that you have done? What are you currently most proud of? Which accomplishments are the ones that you want to highlight maybe for our attendees today?
Yeah, I mean, when you like the whole concept of success is interesting because it constantly changes. If you have like any kind of mindset that you want to get to something, then you get there, and then it's like, what do I do now? And it could be like small things in your life, it could be big things. So I think it's more around like internalizing what do you want from success. And for me, in the beginning, it was just, you know, make a company that works at least. You know, build something that you're interested in. Did that. I think my latest thing was as we started building Productive, basically as a product. I think I wanted to just prove to myself, maybe, but also potentially to the world, like that I can do it again, in a sense. It's like second bands, the second albums. You know how bands have, you know, you try to do the second album and it usually flops. So this is my second album, basically. And I think if I were proud of anything, it's that I kind of proved that it works. But I see so much potential in just growing the business further, so I just want to do it and, you know, go to the next level.
Do you think you're going to do a third sequel of it as well, the third album of it? Is this something you're interested in doing?
I don't know, not even thinking about it. Sometimes it's better to stop, probably, after a second album, go down in history, but I have no idea.
Great. Izet, what makes you proud recently?
Actually, for me, I would define success as constantly doing something you enjoy. I think that has been the thing with me, and then also hopefully like being able to balance it out in terms of other life aspects. That's the ultimate goal. And obviously sometimes we're more successful in it, sometimes less. But yeah, people ask me like, why investing? What the hell? Why aren't you on Bahamas? Because I enjoy it. I love being with this community. I love being with startups, and hopefully helping them out as well.
Great. And Luka?
Similar to Tomislav, I was born and raised with like a thought or maxim saying heroes back to zeros. Like every year, whatever success we had last year, great, but we're now back to zeros and we have to start again. But success for me is there's an inward, something that is very inward, and something that is very outward. The outward part would probably be the fact that we managed to build a company that was sustainable and that was giving value to the clients. Something that when we started, we had no idea what we were doing. But building something that could stand the test of time without us, that's something that I will look back and say, okay, this is really something valuable. To the outside person, it might seem like an obvious thing, but for us who were building this internally, we know how lost we were in the first years and how far this whole thing was. On the inward side, success for me is that I can finally, I own my own time now. That's for me the biggest, outcome of the exit, that I can invest my time now in strategic things that I find most interesting to me and valuable to the companies that I'm involved with. Because previously, when we were, and again referring to Tomislav, he had the same role. When we were calling ourselves as slaves to the company, like we were there to support the company. We weren't we weren't the bosses. We were slaves to the company. We were doing everything that was needed for the company to survive. And I'm now very much proud of the freedom that I have.
It's really interesting because the title of this panel is Exit, but when I ask you about success, both Tomislav and you actually started talking about building something from ground zero. And I think for you, especially Luka, you're working cross industry, you're doing many different things in different industries, from media to sailing routing software to everything. It sounds like every story that you do is kind of a start from zero to something. So all of you I know have bootstrapped your first ventures. And how have you done this? How are you doing it all over again, starting from zero? Where do you find this drive to actually decide what kind of product you're going to build, what your strategy is going to be, and just maybe starting this road to success and finding the courage to take the first step?
To be fair, I'm not doing anything 0 to 1 anymore. 0 to 1, we did it a couple of times. One time it was a success. But several times it wasn't. So right now I'm enjoying building companies from 1 to 10 and 10 to 100. That is something that I didn't have a chance to do before, or it just required too much of my time and effort to be able to successfully do it. And now I'm really enjoying joining the companies at level 1 or 5 or 10 and helping them grow to 100. That is a new challenge for me that I'm enjoying very much, and I have no intention of going to 1 to 0 in the next year or 2 or 3 years until I flush all this out of me and get some successes with those higher tier or higher level companies.
Great. Izet, how about you? Your first, second company, did you start them 0 to 1 or 5 to 10, or would you do it all over again, or is this story also closed for you?
For us, it wasn't quite linear. I mean, our first Računi.hr was that's where it sort of started and became Microblink. Then we span out Photomat, so it was a bit more complex than that. But currently, as a partner at Silicon Gardens, I do enjoy talking to pre-seed level startups, where it is the inception phase, the early phase, where they're trying to prove to themselves, as Tomislav mentioned, that they can get from 0 to 1. And that part is the most exciting to me as well. So yeah, I love that stage.
I mean, one comment on that, in my opinion, is 0 to 1. Like, why this is a panel about exit. So if you want to exit your company, somebody needs to want to buy it. And when you see all those exits for multi-million deals, why are they doing it? Why are they buying these companies for $5, $10, $100 million? Well, precisely because 0 to 1 is the hardest part. Like, these companies have the money. They can start something from scratch. But it's so hard to get it to this point, and so many risks. Like Luka said, we tried a couple of things. One thing worked. It's sometimes easier to just buy a company, and that's, I think, where the buy entrepreneurs sell, because then they get the money, or maybe become part of something bigger, and then that's why companies buy. But just precisely because of the 0 to 1 is that it's so tough. It's so hard from product perspective, timing-wise. I don't know, like the question was something around, would you start something today? No idea. It really depends. Maybe it's not the right time for the idea. Maybe it's too early, too late. A lot of stuff has to line up to actually make sense.
Yeah, you mentioned that actually everything was product driven for you from the beginning, that you were building this great product and then it turned into one of the biggest SaaS companies in the country. What was this experience like? Did you see it coming? Did you plan on it? Were you just, building something for your customers, getting feedback, and then it grew organically? Or did you have this great picture in mind when you already founded the company?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, we had both. We had this great picture, and then we tried to talk to customers, and it didn't work. In the beginning, we built a product for ourselves, and that was, cool. Then we started selling it to people. They were trying it out. Oh, this is not. I like the idea, but you're missing this, and this. This doesn't work. Blah blah blah. So you go back. You back to the drawing board. Start work on some more. Show it to these people. Oh, this is great. Show it to some other people. Sorry, this is crap. And try to iterate on that until you hit this point, which is what people usually refer to as product market fit, where it just starts to make sense. And at that point, we kind of, okay, we got a product here, we got a business here, and then we just stepped on the gas. That's kind of like the short of it.
So on product market fit, is that you have so much experience with this, especially working not regionally, but in the US, United States presidential elections, Google, all these big names. Now when you work as an investor and you're investing into Adriatic startups, how do you advise or how do you select the companies that you want to invest in, looking at how they actually find their product market fit when they are trying to grow their company from the stage where they catch your interest?
So what we do is we often tell them to discount the revenues that they make in their local market, which means, yes, do POCs locally, test it out, make sure it's okay, and then go to the larger markets. That's one of the advices. The second one is to look at the global problems, scalable problems that can be effective globally. I mean, but to the point of Microblink, we didn't quite bootstrap Microblink in the same way. We were solving local problems, but at the same time, we had the luxury of having the best development team that was building technology that we knew we could apply to different problems and different products. So practically, we started with a local problem of scanning payment slips in Croatia. We ended up pivoting into Blink ID scanning, which is a global thing, and that's why it was used for the US elections. So it was a combination of both the product and the deep technology that we knew we could monetize on.
Tomislav, did you want to add something or to this? No? Good? Okay.
I think I forgot.
Okay, no problem. Yes. In that case, let me ask Luka a similar question. So for example, right now, going further with your experience when you sold your company and did a partnership with Endava, how did you really find the right fit, not the product market fit, but the company fit, knowing that this is the right company to partner with, to sell your company to, and also stay on board as a partner and the main person in it?
I mean, we could talk a lot about the whole process and the decision-making thing, but in a nutshell, we weren't sure we were going to sell maybe a couple months before the final exit. We were talking to private equity funds. We were talking to companies a bit similar to our size that we were, trying to figure should we merge and just grow faster. And we talked to a couple of strategic buyers such as Endava. We were trying to, first of all, gauge interest. Second of all, see are we on the right path of building something that works. But third of all, just to see how those things work, because we had one exit before that, but this was the much bigger thing for us, obviously. We ended up choosing the strategic partner just because out of all of these three options, that seemed the most, it made most sense for us personally, business-wise, and everything else. But why we ultimately chose Endava compared to for example, the second runner or the third runner for us, was the fact that we saw that they missed something that we do, that we weren't two equal parts who could, together build something bigger. No, they had their own thing going, and we were something that was missing in their portfolio of services. And we thought for our people, for our business, it would be much more valuable to be a part of something that big and just grow faster and so on. Obviously, when a company of, at that time, 250 people merges with a company of 10,000 people, it's not a merger, it's an acquisition. Whatever people say, it's an acquisition. There's one buyer and there's one seller. We're not, no matter how we sugarcoat it and say we're stronger together and we merge things together, no, it's one buyer and one seller. And once we accepted that, we found our spot under the sun and said, okay, good. I mean, you guys run the show, obviously, but this is what we can do for you, and this is what we are great at. And then, you know, we found, as I said, found our spot under the sun in this strategic partnership.
How did you find that change of power, that change of dynamic? Were you excited to have this finally, to have this large company take over everything you've done, or was it difficult for you to kind of accept that now you finally kind of have a, I don't want to say boss, but somebody that you have to report to and kind of, you know, take their opinion into consideration a little bit more than what you had to do before?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, all of the entrepreneurs are very bad employees because, you know, we don't like authority that much and we always think we know better. And that's why people are entrepreneurs ultimately. I mean, that's why I left my old job because I thought I could do better. But the thing is with this, like running the company, now I didn't have to worry about the finances, about the HR, about recruiting, about you know, delivery of things like project management. I didn't have to worry about hiring, I had to worry about sales and clients, which I loved doing, and that was, so for me, it was, you know, liberating in a way. But obviously, you know, and the second thing was that a lot of our people who were running part of the business, like finances or HR, were given much bigger roles than they would have within our small community, within our company. So I think everyone got what they wanted in a sense. But for founders personally, and my co-founder, so Victor, he left the company after a year. So yeah, this is not for me. I'm you know, there was one startup that we had within 5 that got extracted out or spun out, and he started to run this thing. I said, okay, I'll give this a shot. I'll do this, and I'll try to do my part. I did shake their hands, and we had the same vision in the beginning. So let's try to see how this pans out. So for me, it was fine, but it took a lot of understanding from their side on a couple of things. You know, like I'm now there for like last 3 years. I didn't have a proper boss, so no one manages me that way. So which I have to really appreciate that fact. So I'm thankful in a way.
Great.
I think one problem with entrepreneurs is that their business becomes part of their identity, in a sense. It's kind of the same thing. So basically, when you sell your business, you're selling your identity, you're selling yourself, and a lot of people have a hard time with that, I think. So I think it's also important to kind of get that before you do an exit for your business, you have to get that right in your mind, right? I see people get into all kinds of like crisis, what am I going to do now type of situations. They have a bunch of money now, but like, who am I? Yeah.
Is it you had such a unique experience selling your company to Google, and it must have been very difficult thing, but what was the kind of most liberating, aha, wow, this is amazing moment that you had from that experience? Maybe if somebody in our audience also sells their company to Google, what can they expect? What would be the best thing out of it?
Yeah, but to be fair, for Google, we spun out of Photomat, and then our co-founders Damir Sabol, Sasha Shkevin, and the founding team ran that one, while Jurica Cerovic and myself, we sort of stuck with Microblink. So selling to Google was much easier for us. We didn't have that connection of our identity being sold to Google, but we got some money on the account. For getting our investors into Microblink was much more difficult for me. I mean, one thing as an investor, like ideally you don't want your company to be sold, you want your company to be bought, meaning that you want to have somebody come in and say, we've got to have this business. That's an ideal scenario, and that's what we had at Microblink. For me, it was quite tough. Actually, I was not operational after the partial entry of the private equity fund into the firm. So I was practically advisor that nobody was listening to for a while, and that's very frustrating, as you can imagine. So that's a position I would not suggest anybody to do at any stage. Like you don't want to build something and then give it over and then advise, and then especially if you end up, somebody listen to you and then they're like, they keep on bumping into the wall, like, and then you're like, you were right. I'm like, I don't want to be right, Yeah, so it is a emotionally, it can be an emotional roller coaster, and I've learned a lot from it. So.
On that note, if there are some founders, for example, that are just getting to this stage towards the exit, do you have any advice for them in terms of how can they do it better, either whether it's getting more team members to take some of these tasks that might be a little bit, demanding mentally or in any such sense? Would you have done it any other way going through what you have gone?
Certainly. So the key number one thing is that the co-founders need to be very well aligned. They need to understand what's going on, what's going to happen, and then you certainly need to get as a clear understanding about yourself. What will be my new role? Like I'm running the show, and now I'm not running the show anymore, but I'm still there, and it's like. A lot of these questions they're internal, and you need to go through it and sort of prepare yourself for it, or position yourself differently within the company of how you want to challenge that.
Do you still feel the emotional attachment to the product, to what you have done after it's actually in somebody else's hands? Do you, even if you get completely detached from the product, are you still gonna keep testing what they're doing, be critical to it? And
yes, so that's a good, like, it would be healthier not to, but when you understand what the potential of certain technology is, and you're like, and it could be a space shuttle, and it is getting there, but not at a pace that us entrepreneurs expect it to be. You're like, come on. And these guys, to their point, they're working very hard. The company's growing. They're doing very well, but probably not to the standards that we're accustomed to and that we're used to as a smaller company, I would say.
So on that note, Tomislav, now you're working with a lot of companies. Your company is also acquiring, doing M&A with other companies. What kind of founders are you looking for when you find, for example, because you're really a product guy. You mentioned product market fit so many times. Growing the team, finding the right developers. But when you decide to merge or acquire a certain company, what qualities does a founder have to have in this case to really be aligned with your work?
Yeah. So I mean, so I was part of 2 acquisitions where I was on the acquiring side, basically through Infinum, and we acquired a company in North Macedonia and in the US. So the situation there is like you have to be pretty clear on what you are buying. Like, are you buying, like you mentioned, talent, specific, I don't know, skills, product, their client base, whatever, what are you buying and what's the most important part there? And then kind of through conversation with the owners who are selling, figure out if this makes sense post the deal. So after the deal, like, what do you expect this to happen? What do we expect to happen? So are we aligned? Because there's a whole other team of people there. Like founders in a lot of these situations, the founders leave, like what Luka said for his business partner. It's very common because entrepreneurs are generally unemployable as a cohort. But there are a lot of people usually in these companies who are like really, really good, and this is like an opportunity maybe even for them, because usually the bigger company buys the smaller company. So there's stuff happening there that's always interesting, but it has to be kind of aligned with everybody. But to your point, one problem that we've seen in all these acquisitions is just the merging of the 2 cultures is probably a good word. Like, it's always hard. Like, because these people didn't, like in one of those first deals we did, all those people, and they when we bought the company, and then all of the let's say teams started to merge and like kind of interview the other people, and like all these people felt like they're like changed jobs. So a lot of them quit because this is not what I signed up for. And then we understood that we kind of just botched that whole process and fixed it, and next time it was good. So in the second acquisition, nobody quit. Like out of the entire company, nobody quit in a year or so. So just like merging, it's like transplanting organs. It's like high failure rate, basically.
Great. Okay, I have another question for you guys, which I'm personally very interested in, because whenever we read, in newspapers about acquisitions, these amazing, great numbers that companies are getting, the founders are getting by getting their selling their companies. What does it actually mean financially to sell a company? What are your obligations towards your company? Is it just great? You get all this money that you can freely. Disperse to your company and decide what you're going to do with it. How do you decide what the acquisition fund is going to go into. Let's put it this way. Maybe Luka, if you can
Sure.
help
So,
us.
so it's all part of a negotiation. I mean, part of the money goes for the retention of people and for key employees. Part of the money is typically held in stock of the buying company. Part of the money goes to the like the earnout, like it's given through the earnout if you manage to meet your goals for the next year or 2 years, depending how long the earnout is, maybe even longer. And the rest is something that you get upfront immediately. But that part that you get immediately upfront could be from 30 to 70%. Like it all depends, I guess. I mean, I'm talking in vague terms because it all depends deal to deal because it's part of the negotiation. But typically those are those 4 categories. And then after you succeed in your earnout or whatever your earnout is, you get another lump of money. And then after some time passes in those stock options that you've given from the acquiring company, you get more and more. So it's typically extended through at least like 3-4 years. That period. So that's why having good lawyers and knowing how to negotiate those things is quite important because a lot of things can happen in those 4 years.
In addition to lawyers, Izet, who are the key people that can actually help companies do a very successful M&A or a different type of exit?
For us, actually, it was crucial having the right investors to start with, and then sort of having an idea who can help you. Originally, actually, one of the key players after Jurica and myself sort of spent out or stayed with Microblink was a hire from one of the investors into Photomat. So having that idea of who can help you bring you to the next phase is certainly very important. And I see that as a challenge in the region where companies can get pre-seed and seed funding, while it's much harder to get to the A stage, so Series A. Obviously, good advisors always help you, and sometimes you think that the costs that you're paying are very high. In the end, when it comes down to the negotiations, they do have the experience of multiple deals prior to that, and they can help you a lot there. And just to add to the earnout is something that is used to. An earlier panel discussion with somebody said that there is a huge gap between valuation and expectation, and earnout is used to smaller that gap, and that's why it's in there.
Great. Okay, we're just approaching the end of the time for us, but before leaving, I would like to ask you also to give me and everyone else in the audience some advice of, how to actually run and grow a company into something that people are interested in. Like, what is the one advice out of so many that maybe in this time and place is the most important thing that you look at as a person who's buying startups or, a person who's actually investing in them?
I think it's very simple to just build a good company. Because if you build a good company, somebody is going to want to buy it. Good company meaning that the product or service is good, that it makes money, that it's growing at a certain pace, that it's sustainable, all of those things. There's like 5 or 6 different things. Set all that up, you're going to be able to sell it 100%. Like I get a lot of these inquiries in my inbox. Basically, people are interested. There's always a market for that. You're not, before you get into it, you're not even sure, right? And after some point, you just realize there's a huge market of this stuff happening. So just build a good company, focus on that, and then at some point, if you decide to do it, then just start talking to people.
It doesn't have to be an AI company.
It just has to be a good company, in my opinion, at least. But really work on it, make it good, and it's going to take like 10 years or even more.
Is it for you?
I would just add on that, make sure that you enjoy the process and make sure that the company you're making is customer-centric since day 0. So you need to have the customer in mind, and then you'll be all right.
And Luka?
I can only say, at least what we always lived by, it was build a company as it will last 100 years in terms of vision, your goals, but run it as if you might get sold next year in terms of processes and just cash flow and money, how you run the company. So just combining those 2 visions into one makes a good company. At least it was for us. So if you're able to successfully meet those 2 visions in your daily job, that is something that should work well.
Just one last thing, just in case you guys have something in mind, and maybe there's somebody in the audience who might be related to that. Is there any certain product, service, technology that you're on the lookout for, something that you think everybody might be interested in, let's say in 3 to 4 years time? A little future prediction for the best exit, best service.
I think a lot of good companies are boring companies, not doing anything super exciting, but just solving problems that people have, companies have, or somebody has. I don't think it has to be all like latest and greatest in AI. Sure, it needs to be there. It's a useful thing, but like just solve problems for people. That's kind of the short.
So yeah, currently within our portfolio, not to name any companies, we have companies that are solving problems that I think that are not problems, but their ARR growth is just tremendous. So yeah, find a problem, solve it, make it global, and scale up. So yeah.
Perfect. All right, then let's go look for boring companies that are solving problems. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.